Awesome. Sounds good.
Awesome. Let me check the Facebook group to make sure that everything is live. Are we live? Yes, I think we are live. Let's see. Can hear anything? Yeah, we are live. Awesome. Hey guys, everyone. Welcome to our 65th Facebook Live session. And today we have Trent Evans, who is the insurance marketing expert here, joining us today to share his tips and expert knowledge with all of our members here on in the Advertiser's Den. Hi, welcome again, Trent Evans.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jason. It's awesome to be here, man.
Awesome, Trent. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do, and let us get to know you.
Sure, I'll give you my my fast background story in as compressed as possible. I've been in marketing, online marketing, since 2008. Before that, I actually ran a financial planning business. I was certified. I was a registered investment advisor, working towards my CFP. One thing leads to another. I end up make a long story short, I ended up getting divorced. I had custody of my daughters. And I said, you know what? I built this huge business. I don't have time to run it anymore. Let me sell that business and go help others build their business. And so at the time I was managing about $150 million in assets, and I transitioned that out. And obviously taking that experience has made it a little easier to get financial advisors to at least give it a crack. And then from that point, you're able to kind of go through the process and see what helps, what works, what doesn't. But so since 2008, I've been running a branding and marketing agency. Started out with Google ads, and then about 2012 transitioned into Facebook ads. And then I started running it all through landing pages and funnels around probably early 2016.
Cool. So what kind of financial advisors do you work with? Because I understand in the financial advisory market is something that's pretty broad, and there are a lot of different kinds of roles that play within it. I think financial planning, financial advisors is just one kind of like a financial advisory role, but there are also other roles like insurance and related stuff. So what kind of roles, what kind of people do you work with?
So I've actually worked with probably any of the positions or roles you could name. A lot of my clients come from the aspect of the money management and insurance side. We've been getting a lot more P&C lately because P&C is super competitive. That's property, casualty, auto, home, and all that, for anyone who's not aware what that is. But a majority of the people that I've seen who are out there looking to buy leads are your life insurance people, your long-term care people, your registered investment advisors, certified financial planners, because they generally have higher ticket products that have higher commissions. Therefore, they don't have to convert quite as many to cover their budget for ads and whatnot.
That's true. And for these people, are there a lot of legal complications or any compliance issues? Because I understand that I spoke to, for example, agents from State Farm, and they were saying that they have some compliance requirements from the agency that prevents them from creating their own ads and funnels and all that stuff on Facebook. So do you have a kind of a legal kind of like a issue that you have to work around?
So that's one of the trickiest parts about working in the insurance and financial services business is that every one of them that has I'll say that it's under any large corporate umbrella, whether it's your State Farms, Allstates, or if you go into the personal side above P&C, where it's your MetLifes, your Raymond James, your Merrill Lynch's, any of those are all going to have their own big compliance departments. And one of the things this is my opinion, I'll tell everybody, work on figuring this out. This is the first nugget I will give you right now. Work on figuring out how to work well with compliance departments. Because if you can begin to work with compliance really well, you have easily a leg up over every other person who's going to come into a financial advisor or an insurance agent and say, hey, we can generate leads, because you can say, look, and I'm really accustomed to working with your compliance departments. We understand how they work, and because they're a pain. Their whole job is to make sure that agent or advisor doesn't say anything stupid or make any guarantees that's going to cost them money. and that's their entire job. So their entire job is predicated on saying no.
Yeah.
I mean, so it is a challenge at best, and but it really, I'll say this, it really is satisfying when you figure out how to work with compliance departments. The one way around that a lot of times is if you can find independent offices.
Yeah.
An independent office, a lot of times it's their own compliance internally. So like if you're talking to the owner of the independent office, he's going to be like, well, I pretty much have final say so. So it's not like we have to run it up the flagpole to a compliance department. This is my agency. I'll decide what we're going to add. And that makes it a little easier. But again, that's definitely a tip. If you can, it takes some practice, but it's not as hard as it seems. It's just a lot of the compliance department is thinking practically. Like you have to think about the fact that there's just certain words that are going to think about it like an attorney who's trying to protect your business, right? And think about the words that are going to terrify him. If you say guarantee, if you say we will do this, or that's just terrifying. Like I actually, like you and I talked about some of the stuff we've gone over, and I saw an ad right after we talked, and somebody said, I guarantee that you'll save, it was an auto insurance, I think, and they said, I guarantee you'll save $300 on your insurance. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's got to be an independent guy, because there's no way that ever gets through a compliance department.
Yeah. So Trent, so just to give everyone like a quick background here. So I actually consulted with Trent here for one of my client campaigns. So thank you to Trent. And obviously, I have actually paid you to give me advice. So obviously, you are definitely trustworthy, and I definitely have picked up a lot of stuff from you. But just to give some of our members here who have never run a campaign for any financial advisory or professional, right?
Yeah.
Would you give a kind of like a lay of the land in 3 minutes, just to share with them, like, because there are a lot of roles, like you have independent marketing organizations, you have brokers, you have agents, you have producers, you have carriers. So how does all this thing fit into the industry?
Sure. So the financial services industry as a whole is there's really two different sides you'll see. You'll see what people classify as the insurance industry, which is generally going to be property casualty. That's auto insurance, homeowners insurance, renters insurance, boat, motorcycle, stuff like that. And then you have what is generally referred to as the financial services side, which is your life insurance as well, disability, long-term care. You'll get into that's long-term. That's where you get into financial planning, insurance, stuff like that. But then you've also got your stocks, bonds, mutual funds. You've got your annuities, stuff like that. The financial services side generally pays commission-wise better for the agent, for the advisor. Whereas the P&C side, they actually have a higher volume of sales, but the commissions are generally lower. But on the P&C side, which is the regular insurance, your life, home, auto, all that, they actually get better residuals. So when you're selling to someone who's in the life, auto, health, and all that, and the health insurance, by the way, is in that as well. When you're selling to someone in there, you have to focus on the lifetime value of that customer. So like, how long are they going to keep the customer? Is it over 2 years, 3 years? Then you've got all those accrued commissions, that kind of thing. But to address what you were saying, so every agency, whether it's a huge corporate one or it's a local, just some guy has an independent shop, right? You're always going to have your broker who's at the top, whether it's insurance or financial services. He's the guy who, to be very honest, whose butt is on the line for every transaction. So everything that agent still sells, the broker has to approve it. Underneath your broker, then you're going to have all your producers who are, they're the ones actually out selling your financial products or your insurances. And then you have all the different carriers. And your carriers it's different, various investment companies, various insurance companies. It's your Allstate, your Progressives, and auto, Blue Cross, and health insurance, Aetna, into life insurance. I mean, there's literally probably 1,500 different carriers. I remember when I was doing the business, like the one thing that was nice is there were so many carriers. We'd have literally food spreads every day. That's how many carriers there are. But the carriers is going to be, most agents will choose a carrier based on how their product and how the different, whether it's riders or different variances of the product fit the customer. And then you will have some agents that they just find an affinity to a certain product. I mean, I know I was Pacific Life and we did mutual fund investments. I just had an affinity to them. We did well with them. Didn't mean that everybody else sucked. It was just who they worked with. So that is actually another route. I just thought that's actually another route that different people could work with if you start to network with companies, the actual carriers themselves. But as far as so that's the lay of how the industry works. As far as lead generation, right?
Yeah.
The hardest sale you're going to have, but the most lucrative sale you're going to have as a marketing agency is going to be to go direct to the broker, who is the guy who is either at the corporate level, because even on a large corporate like Allstate, the broker is in charge of his local office. So he has full say-so over all their marketing plans, everything. So you're kind of your white whale, if you will, for a marketer is always the broker. Now, the broker is also the hardest guy to sell because he's like, look, if I'm going to do this, I have to pay it for, I have to generate enough leads for the 30 agents in my company. So, I mean, we've done that before, and you're talking where you get $10,000, $15,000 a month in ad spend. You've got like a monthly management cost on our side. We've had $7,000 to $10,000 a month on our management fee just because you're generating that many leads. Yeah. But the other side that we haven't done a lot of, but it actually hit me that it's stupid on my part as I'm saying this. It's stupid that we've never done this. So y'all have an open window here. We've never done it, and I doubt a lot of other people pursuing marketing have done this. Is if you can approach the carriers. If you go to carriers and say, hey, how about we generate leads for you to be able to hand out to different agents that you're working with? Because the carriers are always looking for, which is why I said like they buy literally food spreads in conference rooms every day. Yeah. They're always looking for ways to be able to kind of get that foot in the door and build that relationship. And it's like the hardest thing they have to do. So that would be definitely something for everybody to check out because I mean, I know we've never done it and I'm super familiar with the industry and I'm blowing my mind right now that I've never thought of that until right now.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Anyway, but then let's go ahead.
Yeah, no. I just recalled that I actually have worked with an insurance carrier, a firearm insurance carrier for an entire year in 2016.
And how'd you feel it went?
Sorry?
How did you feel it went? What was the experience like?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was like the most awesome experience of my life. We actually generated over 600,000 leads in that year for them. It's
fantastic.
It's really crazy, and it's a lot easier as well because then you are not limited by locations. You don't have audience size issues. It's like, man, every campaign
compliance is more flexible then too.
Yeah, exactly. Compliance is. I don't think there was even a compliance issue. I think.
See, the carriers, they're willing to do whatever as long as you're not like. I mean, they have their own set ads. They probably help you a lot with the ads. Like, hey, let's run this and this. We're running this television commercial. Throw this as an ad. Yeah. God, I don't know why I haven't done that before.
Yeah,
that's awesome though.
Yeah, they have a lot of support. They give you media support. They have their own radio station. They have their own magazines, and they just give you all kinds of support. So it's really amazing.
That's fantastic, dude. I'm gonna have to try it. But the third one that we didn't talk about was the actual producers, and those are the ones that they're generally kind of the easiest to get, but they're also the most targeted. It's like right now, the big thing for online marketing is target chiropractors. Well, when in financial services industry, it's target producers, and they know it. But they're in fairness, they're constantly looking though. The hardest part about like when I grew my business to $150 million in assets, I mean, the hardest part is getting leads. Once you're familiar in the business as a producer or something, I mean, you're able to sit there and you're comfortable closing. I think our close rate was something like 60 or 70% of the people we brought in. And it was like, fantastic. It was getting to those people, getting to see those people. And so producers are always looking. So the two different methods, by the way, that I've seen people do lead generation for producers is either selling leads or selling the marketing service. So it's one or the other, right?
Yeah.
And there's positives and negatives to both. Yeah. Which one? Have you done both? Or you because I know you do a lot with the leads as well. Like you sell the leads themselves as a cost per lead.
I don't. I don't sell the leads themselves. I actually did it kind of like a trial pilot, and I realized that the kind of people you attracted is completely different. It's just a wrong kind of mindset and mentality.
It's challenging.
I want to get into that. Yeah. Not for me.
And that's the catch-22 that I've seen on the lead side is you generally get someone who's not as much about building their brand as they are buying leads.
Exactly.
And now that if you're really good, I mean, that can be really lucrative. I know a handful of people that just contemporaries who, I mean, they charge $3,500, $4,000 retainers because they're selling leads at 35 or 40, 35 or 40 leads at $100 a lead.
Yeah.
But then but their catch is that obviously if I don't meet those leads, I give the money back for what I don't meet.
Yeah.
That's the interesting. So, but the two different routes are, one is you manage their accounts for everybody watching. You can run their marketing platforms for them. So they have their own ad spend account. They have their own funnel account or wherever you're building them. And then you manage that for them. You get a separate monthly fee.
Yeah.
So they cover their ad spend. They cover all their costs. You just get a fee for managing it. That actually is, I found, ironically, that's a little bit of a harder sell, but it protects that protects our profits as a marketer. Because we know that when we get our marketing fee, like that's pure profit. That's what we get. The other side, for those that aren't aware, is, you might contract out at a set number of leads and say, okay, we're going to do 25 leads a month. It's a 25 lead minimum, $100 a lead, right? So you get a $2,500 retainer at the beginning of the month. Now it's your job to generate those 25 leads. If you don't, at least this is the way we've run it. If we generate 23, we give them $200 back because they're $100 each.
Yeah, correct.
The catch is then I'm responsible for all the ad spend. I'm responsible for all the expenses. So it's fantastic. If you can spend $300 and generate all that, well, then you've made more money. But if you got to spend $900 or $1,500 in ad spend to generate the same amount of leads, well, now you're not making as much money.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of the catch-22. The only thing I do like about the leads is that they can't take it and run away from you.
Yeah, they can.
Whereas on the marketing side, they can kind of say, oh, you've got our ad campaign set up. And I've had that before where a guy will bounce for 2-3 months thinking he can do it. And then all of a sudden I get a phone call 3 months later. He's like, hey, my campaign's not working. I'm like, well, no, duh. You don't know what you're doing. You took it and did it yourself. And what do you expect? Of course it's not working.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the two gist of how you do it. It just depends on what your preference is. If you're tight, I'll tell you this. If you're starting out, definitely go the marketing side. Run their campaigns, do all that, have them cover their own ad spend, their own expenses, because then it doesn't put you at risk, especially early on. Because early on, if you kick a huge loss or something, I mean, you could just be like, screw it, I'm done. And it could just shove you out of the business and put you in a bad space.
Yeah, not everyone can put in the kind of losses that I did previously.
Right. But see, now the thing is this: when you can do it though, like you've done, you learned a ton though.
Yeah,
you learn a ton doing it, but it's not easy. You have to have the and I'll say this: kudos to you, Jason, because you got to have the guts to do that. It does. It's tough.
Yeah,
I've been there. I've done it. It's like, oh God.
Yeah, it feels like that. So I've got a quick question for one of my members here. You said to try contacting brokers and carriers. What is the best way to get in touch with brokers and carriers?
Okay, so I've got a couple different methods. One of the methods that is really simple, everybody knows this, is to go on LinkedIn. Now, the catch that I have, and this is, I don't know if everybody's heard of the concept called Dream 100. It's about really building. It's really about building relationships with people. Yeah. Okay. Dream 100 always works better, especially with high level targets like a broker. For those of you who haven't looked it up, you can just type in Dream 100 into Google, or later on after this, I'm sure you can ask Jason. Jason can kind of explain to you. But what it is, like when I go on LinkedIn, it's all about building relationships. So I'll help someone and say, hey, maybe have you guys tried this? And I'll throw them literally some tips that looking for nothing in return. It's kind of the whole, you can actually see it here. Wait, wrong side. My fingers are backwards. There you go. Over here, you can see the crushing it book by Gary Vaynerchuk. Yeah. I'm a big Gary V fan, and he's got his other book, Jab, 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 Right Hook. right? And it's the same concept. It's you just providing lots of value, helping them out on LinkedIn, messaging them, giving them advice, and not asking anything. And not even expecting, to be very honest, not even expecting a thank you or a response. I think the one biggest mistake specifically with LinkedIn that everyone does is the moment they get a connection, they're like, hey, Mr. Johnson, it's really nice to have your connection. We've been working with financial advisors and agents, and I'd love to show you what we can do. And now what you've just done is you've just put yourself in that same, you're a simple marketer as everybody else. I mean, I get it from a marketing because I run a branding agency. I get it from web designers all day.
Yeah, I do too.
And I want to pull these guys all aside and be like, what are you doing? No, like give me advice and do this. And then I might actually bring you on. I mean, I do most of it internal, but every once in a while we outsource, right? So it's but the other thing that actually works really well, and this is if you're local. If you have someone who's local, go sit in the office. Go into the lobby, and you can take your laptop with you. And a lot of people, we have all of our mobile phones that have hotspots, and you can take your laptop and just sit in the office and work, and go to the reception and say, I'd like to talk to, boom, this is the broker, Mr. Johnson, Miss Smith, whoever it is, right? I'd like to talk to him, and I'm in no rush. I'm willing to wait. And a lot of times I say, okay, well, I'll let him know you're here, and you sit down and you just wait. And I'm telling you, it is the most bizarre thing that it works. See, I have a very old school mindset because I grew up in insurance. Like I'll be 38 this year. I don't feel old, but you've been around for a little while, and it's like, all right. But when I was at first in insurance, they made us go door to door. Like we would have to go knock on people's homes. You know how awkward that is to go knock. Hi, I'd like to sell you life insurance. You got to make sure your toes are like so far away from the door so it doesn't hit you in the nose when they slam it. But but what it did though is it gave me the ability to now walk into businesses and just feel comfortable. And that's what I'll tell people is one of the biggest ways to catch new clients, especially early on. If you don't have a lot of clients, walk into businesses and be willing to just wait. Say, look, they're like, well, the owner's busy. Say, look, I have no problem with that. Is there a time that I can come back or can I wait? I don't have a problem waiting. I just think that what I have to say to him will really help the business. And I don't have a problem waiting. And you'd be shocked that how many people will actually take that audience with you. Or if you're waiting for a little while, they may come back and say, look, he's going to be busy today. Let me schedule something. And now you've got an appointment with this guy and he knows you're coming in to talk about lead generation or talk about marketing.
Okay.
And that's especially with brokers, the face-to-face relationship's huge.
Okay. And how do you qualify the clients that you work with?
Really, I don't have a lot of qualifications that I have to put on the clients because most of what I'll charge at my minimum management cost is $1,500 if I'm doing the marketing side. And the way I see it is this: if I have an advisor that's willing to pay $1,500 a month, and I just know this from the experience of being in the industry, they're going to be doing well enough, or good enough. They'll be doing well enough that they'll be a decent client. And then from that point, for me, this is the most important factor: is do I like them? Because I know we talked about a client that you had who's was a little obstinate at times. A little difficult and challenging at times. But that's one of the hardest struggles as a marketer is if you work with someone you don't like it makes your job miserable.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I tell people all the time, the two things that I think are the worst decisions ever is working with people you don't like and working with people who are trying to nickel and dime you and negotiate your cost down.
Yeah.
Because it's like my cost is my cost. Because if you're going to tell me right now that, okay, well, I don't know, I can't pay that. Can you do this? No. Because I'll tell you from experience, whether it's insurance, whether it's we did web design early on, whether it's doing marketing, the client that nickel and dimes you is going to be your biggest pain in the butt client. It is what it is. Exactly. So I guess that's the roundabout way to say it. If they can pay, as long as they're not nickel and diming me and I like them. Those are my three qualifications.
And do you work with insurance agents within the same geographical area? Do you tend to have an exclusivity kind of arrangement?
I've never done, I saw the question in the notes that you had mentioned about exclusivity. I've never done that. I can see how if you're willing to, if the client's willing to charge for it or they're willing to pay for it, I think it's actually a good idea because we'll work with, depending on the size of the metro area. Like I'm in Sarasota, Florida, just north of me is Tampa, Florida, right? Tampa's got probably about 1 million people there.
Yeah.
Right. In Tampa, I'll easily take on 3 advisors in the same area doing the same thing. So like I'll take on 2 to 3 advisors selling life insurance. Now, if the advisors are doing different things, and I think that's the biggest thing you have to focus on taking on new clients is what are they selling? What's their forte? What's their target? So if they're targeting mutual funds or if they're targeting auto insurance or homeowners insurance, right? I will limit a big metro area to 2 to 3, really. A smaller, depending on the size. If it's a real small town, you probably should stay with 1. But it really is just dependent on the town. But I never go more than 3, just because you do a disservice to the others. I mean, if you're running a town that's got, okay, I'll give you Sarasota County, which is what I'm in right now, is about 350,000 people, and I'll take 2 people here. When you start getting down under around 50,000 people like that, I would say 50,000 or less, maybe even 100,000 or less, stay with 1. Just because your target audience shrinks. Because out of those, for example, 100,000 people, now you're going to down to, I need people, these age demographics, these income levels, and you start kind of narrowing down your audience. And it's just, you can't have an audience of 10 or 15,000 people and be running 2 or 3 advisors to it. You just can't.
Yeah.
With an audience like we have of 350,000, I mean, generally we're at 50,000 to 100,000 in our audience, and I can run 2 advisors to that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. So that really bridges in, I think, very nicely for us to ask a bit more technical question. What kind of offers have you used before or have worked reliably for you?
Okay. So this is always this is like the number one question we get, right? But I get it because creating the offer is the hardest part. I think the offers that we use. I mean, you have obviously. You have your free evaluations. You've got your discounted financial planning sessions. You've got your free auto insurance comparisons. They all work. I mean, all those will work. The key is figuring out how you're going to word it and what you're going to bring to the table that is different. And I'm not at all trying to dodge the question of the offer specifically, but it really isn't something where you can take a specific offer and just run it across every agent. I know, like, when you look at auto insurance, one of the biggest things to focus on is the savings, right? Because that's what, and by the way, one thing to be very conscious of, people don't think of, is be aware of what's going on kind of in the world or in that environment. For like example, in Florida, you start getting in September or October, start talking about people who we cover our claims the fastest. During last year in a hurricane, we did this, right? Because Florida's a lot of hurricanes and people get auto damage. So maybe one of the things you target then is how quickly your carrier covers claims and does repairs and gets things accomplished. And that's why I say there isn't really, I've never found an offer. It's different than chiropractic work. Chiropractor, I know we can say, look, hey, a $21 X-ray consultation, you're in the door, right? Like, it works like that. With financial advisors, it's different. It really is, because the offer has to be pinpointed to what the target audience's pain point is. Because, for example, you could just use auto insurance. And if I'm using a senior citizen, a young person, or like a family, right? All 3 of them are different target audiences, but they're all 3 going to have different problems or different concerns, regarding insurance. The senior wants something that's super simple. They want a relationship with someone because they don't want to have to deal with the internet. They don't want all that. So the senior, you're really selling relationship, and you're selling that face-to-face appointment, right? Whereas you talk with a family wants, look, we need good protection. We want to make sure everything's taken care of. We need to know that if something happens with the accident or the vehicle, it's going to be repaired quickly, because we've got a family, we got kids playing soccer, doing gymnastics, playing football, basketball. We need our car back and we need it working. Whereas a young person just out of high school or college, they're like, I'm broke. I need cheap. I mean, that's really what it is.
Yeah.
So I think when it comes to offers, it really just comes down to figuring out what the audience is concerned about. Okay. Once you know that, the offer will write itself.
Yeah. Well, so if you were to, let's say, speak to an agent or broker that comes to you, and you're talking to him or her, like, would you have any kind of a criteria? Because, like, this is slightly different from qualification in that you're actually trying to figure out whether you are likely to be able to deliver results for them. So would there be anything specific that you will look into, like they must have a Facebook page, they must already be doing some form of social media or the kind of stuff? Would you?
Yeah, I mean, there's things you can look at to definitely help, and those are stuff. If you hit that on the head, if they already have a social media presence, if they already have a Facebook page. The other thing is to look at is do they have a lot of reviews, especially if they're an independent brokerage. Do they have a lot of reviews? Do they have people, whether it's video reviews, whether it's like on Google where you have your 4-star, 5-star reviews. But one of the bigger things I look at is I'll sit and look in the office, and if you're in the office or if you're on the phone or you do research, you can kind of get a feel for the kind of person they are. And this is where one of the most important skills as a marketer is learning to read people, because you can get a feel for what the person is. You can get a feel if they're a hard worker. You can get a feel if they're making a lot of money, to be very direct. Because I think it really comes down to when you're talking with that person, you want a person that's committed to working with you.
Yeah.
That's what you want. You want a person that understands, I think more than anything, you want someone who understands marketing and they have a specific goals for what they want to do. Because that person is more willing to say, for example, if you start out slow, so if they bring somebody on and you start out slow and it takes a month or two to get ramped up, that person is more willing to stick it out because they understand this is my long-term goal. It's not a short-term, let me get rich quick. It's I'm setting this budget for my marketing every month because I know this is what I want to do. And by the way, there's nothing wrong if you're bringing on a new client for prefacing and telling them what to expect. I tell every client, and I've been doing this now for 10 years, I tell every single client when we're first talking, listen, it is not the right situation for you to work with me if you're not able, in a absolute worst case scenario, able to cover 2 months of our marketing expenses. If you can't do that, then it's not the right fit. Because I don't want them to be making emotional decisions or trying to get me to make emotional decisions rather than decisions based on data.
Yeah.
And money makes us all emotional. So I think that's the biggest thing. Make sure they're committed and just make sure they can pay for it.
Yeah.
That's why I really come back to don't balk on your price. When you set your price, set your price.
Yeah. That's a really, really good point. I think you mentioned it during our call previously, and it's a good reminder here for all of our members as well. So let's go back to the campaign here. So we talked about the offer. What might the ad or landing page look like for you? Like if you could just walk us through an imaginary example of a life insurance agent. Maybe he's based in Chicago trying to sell life insurance to people over 50. So what might like an approach be like in terms of funnel, in terms of yeah.
So if he's for example, if he's doing life insurance over 50, he's really looking at probably a handful of things. He's looking at final expense insurance. So by that time, I mean, you could be looking at mortgage protection insurance, depending on their income levels. Because if they're lower income, you don't want to have a husband who's the breadwinner or wife who's the breadwinner, either one pass away, and then the other one's like, crap, what do I do now? Yeah. So you could still be doing mortgage protection, but that's when you're also going to start to get pitched a lot of final expense insurance. And depending on their level of wealth, if they're very wealthy, that's when they may also start to consider using life insurance because they're younger to pass on
legacy.
Excuse me, legacy. Thank you. The word just escaped me. To do financial planning and pass on assets through life insurance. So, for example, we'll pick one. Let's say we're going to go with final expense insurance. which is ironic. That's kind of a tough one. So we're going to go final expense insurance. Figured I grabbed the hardest one while doing live. But really, the first thing you're going to look at is, this is what I would do. I would go and I'd be asking the agent, well, what is a person who's relatively healthy, say they're 60 years old, what kind of price point are they looking at for their life insurance? And then I'll go and I'll talk with, a lot of this is done. This is where it's nice to have an agent who knows what they're doing. If you have a younger agent who's just starting, who's just willing to put money out for marketing, sometimes you got to start doing this research on your own versus being able to ask them. But I'll go through and I'll just ask them, what's the price point? So based on that, your experience, what kind of income are your current clients having? And we go through and we begin to build our target audience that way. And once we come to the ads, you really sit down, we talk about that target audience and we say, okay, let's look specifically at what concerns do they have? Okay, so if it's final expense insurance, what it is you're generally going to be looking at lower income, normally, final expense insurance. So you're going to be looking at someone who wants to protect their husband or their wife when they go, like they want it all taken care of. Yeah. And so what I would do there is then you're running an ad that's emotional. You have to really, and this is the biggest thing, is put yourself in the client's mindset. So I'm going to run an ad that's emotional. And I'm going to tell everybody right now, do not take this. This is my disclaimer. Do not take what I'm saying right now and throw it directly into an ad, because this is not tested. This is completely off the cuff and it may not work. But you're going to go in and run an emotional ad of maybe a husband and a wife, an older couple on an ad, them swinging, whatever, something where they're out kind of like his arm around her, the emotional thing. And we're just in our little swing. And you're going to run an image ad to that. And it's just going to say, protect the ones you love the most.
Yeah.
Okay. Protect the ones you love the most. And they're like, well, what does that mean? And then I would start out using, and you and I have talked about the ad strategy, about how you kind of go through and we can go over that later if we want. But then I would talk about in the actual content, something along the lines of, when everyone dies or everyone passes away at some point, what we don't want to do is leave our loved ones in a worse place than when we were there.
Yeah. Exactly.
Wouldn't it be nice if you could leave them in a better spot after you're gone than when you were there? And they're going, and now you kind of got the juices flowing. They're thinking like, what's that mean? Yeah. And then I would lead that. Obviously you're going to go through the rest of your content to sell that concept. Yeah. And for the sake of time here, it'd be too long to try and build out that copy. But then as I bring them to the landing page, and this is one of the key points you and I've talked about, is that you want your title. So for example, protect the ones you love. You want that to say that somewhere on one of the top few lines of the header on the landing page, because you want them to know they're in the right spot. Yeah. So once they're there, then you're going to walk through, you're selling the rest of the story, the emotional. If you could find a few testimonials, a few real legit stories that an agent or advisor has to use, even better, because now you're making a personal connection. And then you're leading down into your close. I mean, your close and everything, your close is just your opt-in. And most times it's to schedule a call is what I would do. If it's local, you can try and schedule an appointment to come in, but it's going to be harder. I would schedule a call or get their name, email, phone number to have the agent call. Yeah. One of the things that most agents miss, especially when they're doing lead generation, is putting together a follow-up sequence. I'll tell you from experience, most financial advisors just think this is a follow-up sequence. I'm like, no, that's not a follow-up sequence. You can't call 2,000 people every day or email 2,000 people or call 2,000 people in a week. It's mind-blowing. You can't do it. So that's one of the bigger things that we've worked on setting up with a lot of agents and advisors, is putting together an email sequence, and you just slowly add to the back of it. It doesn't have to be like a 50 email sequence right away. You can start with 4 or 5 that just kind of communicate. And you really want to communicate 3 or 4 different things, and you want to kind of break them up together, right? So you want them to know you're trustworthy. You want them to know that you know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. You want to give examples so that you're educating them, and then you just want to connect. Yeah. And if you can do like those 4 things throughout the different emails, like the first one you might send might just be like a relationship building email
Mhm.
with a question,
Mm.
right? So you're just, hey, I wanted to know what you thought about this. What are your thoughts? If you respond, I'd love to. It comes directly to me. I'll respond personally. Like you're telling them that in the email, and then it kind of you slowly begin to build a relationship through email. Anyway,
Yeah.
I know I don't want to kill all our time here,
No,
but
that's
that's
fine.
what
No
I would do.
worries.
It would just do the you have from the offer focus is always has to be first. Too many people build out the funnel and the ads first. Get your offer right in your audience, and then the rest will take care of itself.
Okay. And in terms of like, I think a lot of people have this question, and I know we talked about this before because it's so hard to generalize, but what is the average conversion rate that you have seen before, and in terms of like average cost per lead when it comes to your insurance clients?
So the industry average cost for cold traffic, the industry, not just industry, I mean industry meaning marketing, not life insurance. The industry average is anywhere from like 3 to 5%.
Yeah.
It's considered anything above 5 to 7. You get in the 8, 9, that range is considered really good for cold traffic.
Mm.
When it comes to insurance, if you can hit that industry average at 3 to 5%, you're doing really well, especially early on, because insurance is one of the things that is targeted the most. And it's also one of the things, because it's a personal thing, it's something we're the most resistant to. So if you can hit 3 to 5% like cold traffic conversions, you're doing great. As far as cost per lead, it's going to vary. You're a lower end product like auto insurance, stuff like that, you're probably going to fall somewhere in the area. Early on, you may start as much as $30-$40 a lead.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen campaigns start as high as $60 a lead. If you're up in the $100 a lead spot on auto insurance, it's going to be tough, because they're probably, if they get 10 leads, they'll probably set appointments of 8, close 3.
Yeah.
Or maybe set appointments 7, close 3. And so then they're spending $1,000 to get 3 deals. And that's the biggest thing you have to keep in mind, is what their commission point is on the lead.
Yeah.
But typically you can get it with some work, you can get them down to around auto insurance, around $20 to $30 a lead. Life insurance is generally going to run probably around 50 a lead on a good campaign. And actually a good campaign is a lot more expensive than people realize when it comes to financial leads, like investments. If you can get $100 to $150 leads, 100 is like the magic number. If you can get $100 leads for investment leads, you'll be golden. People will buy leads from you, and they'll want your services all day long. Because if they have 10 leads and they sell 1, most times in investments and insurance, I mean, you're going to make $2-3 grand.
Yeah, exactly.
If it's a big account, I mean, you can make. I mean, we had one client who brought in an investment account, brought in over $5 million off 1 lead. Just worked out that way. Well, I mean, that dude right there, he's going to make 50 grand a year off that 1 lead.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Awesome.
I think that's awesome. About right. Yeah.
Yeah, you did, definitely did. And what are the what are the usual pitfalls that we should avoid?
The biggest pitfall is not setting proper expectations. You have to set proper expectations. That's where I talked about telling our client that, in a worst case scenario, plan on 2 months of fees. In an absolute worst case scenario, have 2 months set aside that you can cover. Because I think that's the biggest pitfall is not letting a client understand what exactly to expect.
Yeah.
Because I think early on, especially if you're somewhat new to marketing, you have a tendency to not want to give them all the information, including worst case scenarios, because I might lose the client. I want the client. I need the money, and I get it. But then just be prepared. If you're not really present on the situation, you may have a client who's going to be a little bit emotional. And I think that's the hardest part of our job, is dealing with an emotional client and getting them back to a data-driven client.
Yeah, true. And one last question before we kind of wrap this up. Really, thank you so much for your time so far. What is a good close rate that an agent should have for you to kind of judge whether it is a good agent to work with?
A good agent should be able to close 40 to 50% of the people they sit with. To be very direct, I mean, it may be 35 to 40 for auto insurance because it's more competitive, or health insurance. But if you get up into life insurance and investments, especially if you get up into higher ticket like investments. In investments, I would say a good agent should be able to close almost 60 to 70%.
Yeah, that's about a number.
I mean, that's the elite, but those are the ones who, when you get them leads, they're just going to turn them and they're just going to start throwing more money at you and say, just give me more leads. I'm closing everything.
Yeah.
And make sure, I want to say one thing to people, make sure that when you're talking to the client, and you'll hear this question, and this is one of the things people get a lot, and I didn't know how to respond to it. So I'm going to give you all the response. Okay. People used to say, well, how about I pay you a commission? You'll get me leads and I'll pay you a percentage of what I make. Right. And so here, this is the response. The response is really simple. And I've learned this and got it out perfect. The response is, look, I appreciate that. That shows me that you're really interested. And I'm flattered. I'm glad that you find enough value in what I do to want me to work with you. However, I've made it a company policy that I will not do a commission-based situation or pay for performance type situation, because then from my perspective, it puts the onus on whether you're a good closer or not. And you very well may be, but I want to get paid on my merit, not yours. So my merit is being able to generate the leads. So I want to be able to be paid on my merit, not how well you can close them. And most people are like, fantastic, great. Like that if someone argues with you on that, then that's the point you just need to walk away.
Okay. That's extremely good advice right there, man. That's like $1,000 advice. People, pick this up.
But that's the number one question I get asked from people, and it's hard.
Awesome. So Trent, thank you so much for your time so far and tonight. I mean, like this morning for you, and taking the time right off a day to do this for us.
I really hope you enjoyed and got a lot of value of this video. If you did, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment below. I'm going to be answering all the comments myself. And also, come find me on your favorite social media platform and tell me what else I can help you with.